Everyone ready? Good evening. Welcome to the April 17th study session. I ask that everyone either turn off their cell phone or silence them. We're televised live right now, and we're also replays every night on Channel 2 at 7 p.m. and at midnight. Little change to the agenda here. The number 4 items can be moved up to number 1, and the other ones will stay in the order that they're listed there. So we're going to go with stormwater fee review first. Mr. Kramer?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and Commission, at the April 3rd City Commission study session, the City Commission discussed the main elements, funding structure, collection methods, and management plan for the stormwater program for you. I should say reviewed where we were up to that point. The Commission at that meeting reached consensus on all the items except the fee collection amount on the residential classification. The Commission asked staff to come back and just show some of the different options that were potentially available at the 3 different funding levels for residential, which is $72 annually, $84 annually, and $96 annually, or $6, $7, or $8 per month. So staff did that. We came up with, this is merely just a draft of what we could do at those different levels until we get a stormwater project manager on board, until we decide what studies we need to do or what studies we need to update. There's a year 2000 study that we can update that identify and prioritize some of the bigger projects. But this is what it would look like, and what we've tried to do here is this first slide that shows $6 a month. We showed sort of what a program could look like, starting with some inlet projects and some lining projects, getting staff on board, and start attacking some of these orange fence projects. And I know that's not a real precise term, but what it is it's issues that are in people's backyards. These are sinkholes. Commissioner Wilson was out just a couple weeks ago meeting with a gentleman who's got an issue in his backyard where 3 stormwater pipes come out at the exact same area and is severely eroding some stream in his backyard. That would be an orange fence project. Those are I don't want to say small fixes, they're expensive, but they're relatively isolated, and we have about 20 of those around the city that we're aware of right now. Now, when you put this out there, maybe you'll get calls that there's some more, so we wanted to start that early on. Moving to $7 a month, the changes are sort of highlighted here, and what we'd start doing is start doing some of these formalized projects, the inlet project, the lining project, either at a higher level or a year earlier. As anybody, it's common logic that more funds allows you to do more and do more quicker. And we did the same thing then again at the $8 a month level. At the $8 a month level, there's a huge influx that we show in 2020 of $2.5 million, and that indicates a bond that we would potentially issue. I'd hate to tie the commission or staff or this program into anything at this point. This is just an idea of something we could do. And the 2 systems we would focus on, or that we threw in this, and they would require further study, are the Broadway drainage system and the 9th Street drainage system. A lot of these go from the north end of town to 3 Mile Creek and affect a lot of neighborhoods. And the reason those we selected for bonding, other than something like a large stone replacement project, is these projects involve a lot of work in people's yards, and it disrupts people's lives. So by bonding this, instead of phasing it over 3, 4, 5 years, you could do it in 1 year. So when we looked at bonding and what makes a good bonding project in stormwater, it's minimizing impact on residents and maximizing flow and improvements of the system. So again, I don't want to tie these exact numbers to what we would do. This is probably a good representation of what we could do in the direction we're going, short of having somebody on staff and exploring some more studies to do. So that's what we've brought forward tonight.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Unit costs. How did you come up with $6, $7, and $8 per month? How did you come up with what was historic? Did you look at other cities? Or?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This was, the dollar amounts were one of the first things we did, probably May or June of last year. Those are based on our peer cities. It gets a little bit complicated. a lot of the Johnson County cities will be a slightly lower than $6, $7, or $8, but they also have a county-wide dedicated sales tax to stormwater. So they collect this county and then they push that back out to the communities. So everybody's trying to get to maximizing dollars, and they're able to use a sales tax countywide that they do. They do a lot of efforts countywide in Johnson County with stormwater because the cities are so small and interconnected, and a lot of it works. But this is all based off peer cities and communities around the state of Kansas.
Okay. Are you going to talk about the commercial and the industrial property, the unit rates, in the rest of your presentation, or should I ask that question now?
Let me take it
Wait,
from
we're
here.
gonna do that.
Yeah, let me, what we determined at the last study session, we had a consensus on everything on the commercial and industrial rates. We had consensus on that, and the only thing that was left open was either $6, $7, or $8 a month. I know now there's a lot of discussion among the commissioners, not jointly, but individually, and I don't know what the details are, but I think there's some other ideas that would be brought forward. But where we left this was we had locked in on the industrial and commercial rates, and the only thing left open was, are we going to charge 6, 7, or 8? That can change, and that's where I want to open up the floor to, because I don't know if each of us have a particular proposal or an idea, but that's what I want to open it up to.
I'll start. I know what we reached consensus on, but after hearing Phil Urban's commentary and his comments, I went back and thought about it. I've been thinking about it the last week or 10 days or whatever, and I'm just concerned that the unit rates we've come up with for the commercial and the industrial property owners, particularly for the commercial property owners, which are, you know, basically the business people downtown. I mean, there are others, but that would be a big number of our merchants and our business people. And I think it's just, I would like to look at another course of action which would basically half those rates for the commercial property owners and the industrial property owners. And that's where that's my big concern at this point.
Mike, go ahead.
Okay,
Go ahead, Mayor.
where I am is I want to hit a minimum of that 1.2 million change. How we arrive at that, I don't want to say I don't care, but I think we have to achieve critical mass, and that critical mass, in my opinion, is a minimum 1.2 million. And I think there might be some proposals here how we do it. And if we take residential 6, 7, 8, can we take it down off commercial then, as long as we meet that minimum? I know that this does hit commercial and industrial. We're probably I believe we're the only city of the first class in the state of Kansas that doesn't have a stormwater fee. We've never had one. That doesn't say that's why we should have one, but we definitely have one, so it's not something that Leavenworth is doing. But let's listen to, I don't know if you have a particular proposal, Commissioner Griswold, Commissioner.
I do, but I can wait. I mean, I do, but
okay.
I've said enough at this point. So.
Larry, do you want to go?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
I'll let you go first.
Let you have one. I'll pass those down.
And it's just one sheet?
Just one sheet, yes. I'm just passing a copy out of the fee schedule. First of all, I want to apologize for not being here at last study session when you were talking about this.
You need another one?
But,
I've got my old one with me.
that's mine.
Okay.
Thanks.
I got an extra one.
I'll get one from John.
Okay.
What I've done, I knew from listening to your conversations and whatnot that you wanted to try to stay at the minimal fee. My concern on this since the very beginning of this, if you remember, was the commercial and the industrial fees charges on it.
Right.
We have businesses downtown that would probably pay it, but it might take their paycheck for a payday to be able to pay this. And you've got other ones that could write a check with no problem. So you've got a variety of business and financial concerns. But what I did was sitting here playing with this. I used the $84 fee, I went in the middle, and I added 10 cents a month. That's generating $86,848.
That extra 10 cents?
That extra 10 cents a month. So then I decided to go ahead and cut the commercial and the industrial fees by 1/3. And I've done that. So that brings you down from your 488 to 302, 350, your industrial from 127 to 84, 850, and your residential went up to 828, 484, which gives you a total of 1215, 684, which is about $65,000 less than what you've got here.
But
I
you're still
feel
getting 1.2 million.
that
right?
you come out with, your total comes out 1.215.
Okay.
And that reduces the rates, like your 45 unit goes down to 216, your 675 is 450, your 1025 goes to 683 on your rates, your 1350 goes to 900, 2400 goes to 1600, your 4150 goes to 2760, and your 5200 goes to 3466, and your 6250 goes to 4166. And I think, based on everything, I wish we could cut it more, but to do that, you're gonna have to raise it someplace. So I personally am content with what we've done, with what we've got to work with on the fee schedules. I don't know what your all's feeling is on it.
But with the adjustment that you just
With the adjustment, yes.
proposed.
Well, and my concern was too, not just the commercial and industrial, but these fees are on everybody's property, so they're also on the schools and the churches, and, I mean, some of our churches have a great deal of land here, and I had a concern about how much they were gonna be spending on this as well. And, I think 1/3 to 1/2 cut off of that. And then for the residential, the lowest, and I'm sorry I couldn't have been here at the last study session, I would have liked to have talked about this then. But, I appreciate all the work that you did, Commissioner.
That's fine.
I just have a quick question, Commissioner Dedeke. I'm not sharpshooting your math, but take that $84 a month.
Right.
Instead of $84 a year. Instead of $7 a month, you're saying how much? $7.10?
Well, it'd be 85.20 a year.
Okay, $1.20 times 88.
97, if you go ahead and count your duplexes.
Okay. So $1.20 times, let's call it 10,000 units. That's $10,000, not $86,000. I don't understand where the 86,000 is coming from.
Because you're multiplying 86 or 85. You're not multiplying a dollar. A dollar times 10,000.
Were you increasing 10 cents a month or $1.20 a year? Or $1.20 a month or 10 cents a month?
10 cents a month, which is $1.20 a year.
Okay, and then there's, let's call it 10,000 units
Well, it's 97.24 to be exact.
times $1.20
is 85.20.
No. Say it's 10,000 and say it's $1, that's $10,000.
It's not a dollar increase.
How much is it?
It's $1.20 increase.
Okay, $1.20, am I missing something, times 90?
What I did was take the existing figure and I added my raise to it.
Okay, but I don't, am I, at $1.20 increase times how many units? 99?
97.24.
Yeah.
It's about 11,680.
Yeah, 120.
Yeah.
Okay, I stand corrected on
So,
it.
okay.
It is 1166, so it's better yet.
Okay, so that, okay, so what does that make your numbers do? How much does that amount to? Did you say?
Roughly $3,000 more, which would make your loss about 6,200. Difference between what the original
But overall, we need to make adjustments. That's
Well,
Yeah, basically, you're staying the
Yeah, but the
same.
math's important.
yeah, but I'm,
So your loss comes out, instead of 65,244, your loss is 140,424.
Is what?
See the loss number, the 65,244 that he has there? It now becomes 140,424.
140,424.
you see what I'm saying, Larry?
No, I don't.
If you right now, we get 816,000, I'm sorry, where's the $7 one? Right here. The single-family duplexes, we get $816,000 and change. You see that? Those two right there?
Yeah, on
Okay.
84.
If we add $1.20 per year, we're gonna get approximately another $11,000. It'd be 827. Is that what you said? Was it 11? We'll call it 12,000 for grant.
11,680.
Okay, so that 816 goes to 828,000. Am I correct in that? And then, so that increase there, instead of 86,000 that you have up here,
Right.
is only 11,000.
I come up with a new total of $1,140,504.
1,000,000.
$140,504.
So that's
about 1.1 million.
That's 75,000 less than
Yes.
where we were.
Okay,
That's exactly right.
Okay,
Okay, I got you.
okay, just one, okay,
I see.
okay. Yeah,
Am I frowning? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark, I've got,
Go ahead.
because it kind of builds on what Larry said. You can give one down if you want. Would you pass these down? I think there's one for Carla too. Larry came up with a course of action, and that's what I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but it's the way I think and the way I've been trained and educated in my military career. Where'd my thing go to? Did I give out my notes?
Right there.
Okay, yeah. So, the purpose, was just, in thinking about this over the last few days, was to select the best course of action for establishing a fee structure to fund the City of Leavenworth Storm Management Program. Second slide, review of options. Now, the first two options were based on the analysis that Paul and his staff have done. Course of action one was the $1.28 million. That came from that first set of two columns in Paul's 3 April policy report, you know, that spreadsheet.
Right.
And then course of action two was unit annual residential fee of $8 and full commercial industrial rates, what he had in his third set of the two columns. That came out to be about 1.51 million. Well, then I was concerned, just like Larry is, and I think Nancy is, that the industrial and the commercial rates, the unit rates, were a little bit too high. So I just said, total revenue raised per year with unit annual residential fee of $7. I took the one in the middle, you know, rather than 6 or 8, and commercial industrial rates discounted by half. So then I went to the next page, and I thought about decision criteria. How do we rank those 3 courses of action? If I had known Larry was doing this, I would have added a 4th course of action, which would be his course of action, which was a third, I think, in terms of reducing by a third the industrial and the commercial rates, and doing a little bit of an adjustment on the residential, a little bit upwards. But the criteria there are in the left-hand column. I just said we had to have adequate revenue collected to meet the stormwater management program schedule, fairness of the fee structure, bang for buck, and then future flexibility. Now, the definitions, you know, are over on the right, and those are my definitions, but if you want to take a quick look at them, I'm not going to read them. But, and then, so we go to the next chart, which is the relative values matrix. This is the course of action comparison. And what I did, and this is called a pairwise comparison, and we compare the courses of action against one another in terms of how best they fit or meet that criteria that I just briefed in terms of the decision criteria. And a lower number is better. And you rank them from best to next best to third best or worst, 1, 2, 3. And so though you see those decision criteria along the horizontal portion of this table, and so then this was without any weights. This was applying no weights, just a straight comparison. And lower is better because 1 is best, 2 is next best, and 3 is third best. In some cases, the courses of action in my assessment were the same, were valued the same. They met that decision criteria in the same manner. So then we go to the next chart, relatives, values, matrix weighted. This is where, and normally this is done with a few planners or a few analysts, but I was doing it myself, but I said, what's most important out of those 4 decision criteria? To me, it was having adequate revenue collected and then the fairness of the fee structure. And therefore, in terms of 100%, I gave 40 points to the adequate revenue collected, fairness of fee structure 40 points, bang for buck 15, and future flexibility 5. And so you just do the math, and you see that course of action 3, which was my adjustment in terms of having the industrial and the commercial rates, comes out significantly lower than the other 2 courses of action. Now, this is a technique, I'm used to this technique because this is what I did in the military, but that's how I got there. Then the recommendation, and by the way, I would have added, if I known about Larry's, I would have added Larry's as the 4th course of action. And in fact, we could do this again with a 4th course of action there to see what comes out best. So the course of action 3 was my recommendation, $1.1 million, and adequate fees collected, fair to the taxpayers, and sufficiently flexible to deal with unforeseen requirements or emergency needs. And then I had a way ahead, just trying to do some work over here over the next 2 to 3 weeks to put us in a position in June where we could either late May or early June make a decision so we could, get this going with the property tax bills that go to our citizens in the 2019 timeframe.
This has nothing to do with property tax.
Not property. I thought we were going to put it on the property tax bill.
Well, we are
No,
putting it on the
yeah,
property
bill.
tax bill.
Yeah, but it's not property tax, but
Yeah.
did I say that? But
Yeah.
it's gonna be a fee on the property tax bill, right? And that
Right.
comes like, so
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I
Yeah.
misstated
Yeah.
that. I got that. I mean, this is a fee structure, and I'm comfortable with that. So those were the way ahead actions and when I thought we needed to complete them by. So, I mean, if I was, and the thing is, I think Paul could take what we've talked about tonight and maybe use the technique I used or get your own technique to compare either the 2 courses of action, Larry's and mine, or the 4. You had 2 and I had 1 and Larry had 1, so. But I think this is really important. It's like a bond issue. We must make sure that I know everyone's not gonna agree with it, but it has to be, they need to know what the fee structure is gonna be, and then I would suggest a couple of, focus groups, to get feedback, to make sure we're good to go. Maybe we would make a few adjustments after that, but I think that would be the way to proceed. So, that's it.
Commissioner Bowder?
Go ahead.
No, I have nothing. I'm
All right.
waiting for your input.
No, I agree. I think we should either cut the commercial or the non-residential, not necessarily
Sure.
just commercial, because
Right.
like I said, we're dealing with nonprofits as well. So the non-residential by a half to a third, and then keep the residential at the lowest possible level.
Just for clarification, Commissioner Dedeky, yours is cut commercial by 1/3 or cut it to 1/3? Cut it
by 1.
By one.
33% cut, okay. And based on that one, just doing the math, 1.14 million. In my opinion, that reaches that critical mass, the amount of money that we need to make this project work. If we do nothing, we have nothing, and if we don't have this critical mass, whatever that number is, and I've always said 1.2 million, but I could live with 1.14. I like the fee structure that you've come up with, because I think it brings up that, gives us the money that we need to work with. It cuts commercial and industrial by 33%. It's $7.10 a month for residential duplexes. And we've bounced around these numbers for the last 18 months or so, back,
Apparently, it's been bounced around for the last 20 years.
well, 25 years.
At least.
And I'm sure you've gotten some input from some, and I've received input from some commercial and industrial people on the fees. Some of them say, you know, one, I'm surprised that you don't have them. Some of them say, if that's what I have to pay, that's what I have to pay. But other ones say, you know, what can we do to mitigate that somewhat? And I think what you proposed here is mitigation. Now, Commissioner Griswold, do you have?
What my course of action 3 comes up to is $1,107,216, which is $1,107,216, which is $33,000 less than Larry's, so.
One million, say that again, I'm sorry.
$1,107,216.
And how much is residential?
Residential is 800 and,
No, how much per month?
Oh, it was,
per month or annual?
I think you chose a 7.
Is
I
it,
chose
was it 7 or the 8?
it's a
on that
7, it's a 7. But hold on, I may have made a, hold on a minute.
You said
I may have-
seven.
I may
It
have
looks like you have
said-
7 in your review box.
Yeah, I said 7, but I just wanna make sure I didn't.
Yeah, you
But
said-
how much were you cutting commercial and residential?
No, that's
by?
right, 7. I was cutting,
7,
I was
commercial
cutting
by
commercial and industrial by half. By half.
And that's only gonna.
Yeah, that-
It's only a kick,
The-
if I lose another 17%,
Well,
Commissioner Dedekies drops at 30. I don't have that fee schedule right in front of me. Do you have it, Mr. McDonald, Mr. Kramer, on, how much does commercial, no, the one from a couple weeks ago?
here.
Yeah, I can pull it up. Okay,
The math
I think
checks.
you just
The
handed
okay, so,
It's a dollar.
you just handed it out.
so, it's $580,000 on the old fee.
588 divided by 2, you get 290, 400, add that to $7 a month at 816, and you get the
1,107,216.
1,107,216.
And Commissioner Dedekies is $7.10. Yours was
Yep.
$7.
Yes.
Okay, 84 versus 85.20.
Hey.
I'm
You guys are
I'm in.
close.
What? Hey, we're close.
Close.
Yeah.
I'm only, $33,000 less than Larry, or Larry's $33,000 more than me, which, you know, we just need to think, I don't know, what is?
Commissioner Wilson.
I
And
believe
you
we
got,
should.
let's
I
hear
know,
you.
right?
You need a calculator?
No, sir. I believe we need to make adjustments. I definitely love your idea as well. And like I said, I know it's $33,000 short from Mr. Dedekies, but to actually, you know, help out the small businesses by cutting it in half, I think that'd be tremendous.
And
Yeah.
I'm,
Yeah,
if
we
we
can
have
always-
if we have a consensus, I'm,
I would be most comfortable with that, and it's nothing, I mean, I don't think we wanna make wholesale changes, but we can look as we proceed on this program, right?
Yeah, the plan on this would be to adopt it in the schedule of fees. The schedule of fees is, we review annually.
all right.
Okay.
So, but we probably need to move forward on
Yeah.
this, so that we can go with the charter ordinance, put all this in. So, I think we have two, go ahead, Mr.
But I'm only in favor if you're willing to do another focus group. That way, it's gonna educate the public. I know you
Okay.
guys done several, but I still
Yeah.
think we still need to
We
educate
did,
the
we did them on the problem, we haven't really done anything on the
Fee.
fees.
Okay, all right.
But we've had open meetings
We haven't had
on the fees, and people
Yeah, but
come
we
and.
didn't have any, we
yeah,
didn't really
and,
have anything out there.
What's our timeframe, Mr. Miller, Mr. Kramer?
So we need to have this to the county clerk by essentially the end of June. So we had this on the agenda for, the first meeting in May, for the first consideration ordinance. You can leave that on for the first consideration ordinance. There can be changes between first consideration and second consideration, so it'd be the second meeting in May that it would pass, which gives us the opportunity to make sure we get everything in on time.
We could do a focus group anytime.
Yeah.
Second meeting
And,
in May would be
yeah, and I'm
May
saying we can do a
22nd.
focus group to explain this,
Yes.
but and I've been involved in focus groups a lot in my life, and not necessarily a lot, but quite a few times. And I know if we have 30 people there, we could easily get 20 different decisions. Bottom line is, I think we are all in agreement, we need to hit this critical number of 1.1 million plus some change, whatever it might be. So I think the focus group is good for getting the publicity out, but what are you gonna do if you get 20 different things? I mean, how, at
I don't
some
think-
point,
well, we're
we are
making
charged
rules.
with making the call.
Yeah.
We've gotta make the decision. We are gonna get input, but we may get 20 different inputs.
Well, it's just educating the people, so when they see that fee.
Well, I have no problem with
Yeah.
educating them, but I think we should, I think we have enough information to go forward now, but still have the focus groups or the information sessions, but say, this is what we're going to do. That's my feeling, but, if we're in agreement that we have to hit this 1.1 million, I don't know if there's an agreement among the commissioners that we have to hit the 1.1 million. I'll get to you, Mr. Urban.
I think we need to stay as high as we possibly
Yeah,
can
which
to get lower, and I agree with the half. If you
Yeah,
get a
yeah,
half,
that's what I. that's what I-
1.107 sounds good to me.
I agree. I think.
But I'm just,
Fees are
and
half, agree.
I know focus group sounds good in and of itself, but we already established this number. What's the focus group going to do? And I'm not against.
Preparing the people for the fee.
Okay, so we can make the decision on the fee and still have a focus group, not a focus group, but an information session.
Yes.
Focus group, you're looking for input, okay, what do we need to do? We're making that.
I know one
but-
thing that could come up, and I'm not saying, I wouldn't see a wholesale or a significant change to what we have, but there could be some things on the edges or something that we might wanna tweak a little bit. But somebody said, well, and I know that there's some challenges associated with this, what about even doing the residential of breaking it up into like houses that have less than 1,000 square feet or 2,000 square feet? This is one of the things I heard. Now, I'm not necessarily in favor of it, but.
We'll hear it. We'll hear everyone.
It could be one of the things that, a resident, brings up, where you'd have 6 or 7 categories beginning with, $6, $8, $10, $12, $14. I'm not saying I'm just saying that that's what I've heard from some.
No, and I'll guarantee you
But-
we'll hear that. But that's what our job, we have to make that call. So we're gonna take that, and yes, all that should be considered. And we're considering that now. Some people that have a smaller house, they're gonna pay the same amount as somebody
right.
that has a big house. I mean, we're making that call.
Well, I don't.
And
Right.
unless we adjust that now. Because yes, that is a legitimate, concern that people are gonna bring up. But I think we've kind of addressed that. We don't need a focus group to hear that. I mean,
did no math
I
on
know
that?
that.
You didn't make any adjustments on that, Mike?
Second?
Did you make any math?
No, I didn't do any math on that. I didn't do any math on that, so.
I would be okay with doing a public meeting. though.
Yeah, a public meeting, but focus group as to, a public meeting, focus, we can call it whatever
Sure.
we want, that we get this
Educational-
information out.
Educational information.
yeah.
Let's do it.
That's great if we get better turnout what we had.
Yeah,
last
and,
year.
I would
yeah.
hope
15, I
so.
think it was.
People would.
Well, I would-
I think you'd get a better turnout after they start getting the bills, and, I mean,
Yeah.
it'd be.
Yeah,
for
well,
me,
I would
if
send,
started
I
getting
would
the bill,
send
I'd
some
wanna know more.
email invitations to some people, particularly some of the business people, but, part of that would be part of my approach there, but.
Nonprofits,
Nonprofits.
so they're still getting taxed.
Not taxed.
It's not a tax, it's a fee.
It's a
Stormwater
State
fee.
Just like they pay,
They use
they pay a water bill, this is a fee. It's
Mr.
not on
Mayor,
water.
when would you think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So what about the size of the church? Like, how would the
Is
church?
the building,
It's the building.
not the parking lot, not the ground,
Okay.
it is
It's the building.
it's the
Okay.
size of the physical building.
That's good.
Now, what were you asking?
I was just gonna say, when do you think we would, have this public forum or focus group or public forum, we're talking sometime.
I'd say within the next 2 weeks.
I think
Yeah,
that's
that'd be
good.
I mean, we have to be quick, we have to look at calendars, availability, but,
That's
a
what-
simple sheet, here's what the cost is gonna be, whether it be, and we have to decide whether it's gonna be $7.10 a month or $7 a month in the commercial fees, and go with that, and say that's the direction we're going, this is how it's going to work, and explain it. Mr. Urban, I think, had something to say, or did we answer all your questions? Well, please don't have too many questions, because I may cut you off. Yeah, no, but I'll keep you on point, so let's keep moving. You and I have a long history. Keep on.
Well, first off, it sounds like what you're talking about tonight would lower mine.
That's right, you should be happy.
No, I'm here to raise it back up.
Oh, good, good, good.
What
You
I'm
can
looking
just-
for is fair, okay?
Yeah,
All right. I think you ought to look at houses, residential, single-family dwellings, maybe an $8 fee, and then if you're over so many square feet, 2,500, 3,000 square feet and bigger, maybe that should be $11. Now, you're wanting to generate money for your project, which we need this project. With having said that, then fair and equal. My fee on your original structure on 9,000 square feet, where would be getting hit possibly on apartments at $8 a pop for each apartment, whether they be rented or not, would come to $169.42 a month, or $2,033 a year. Having said that,
Say that again, you have how many apartments? 20?
no, on 12 apartments at $8 a pop, plus my square footage of the commercial on the building would add together and could be as much as $2,033 a year. If we said, okay, some of those apartments aren't usable at this point in time, we're not gonna charge you for those, I'm looking at anywhere from $1,200–1,300 a year off the original structure to as high as possibly $2,033. Okay, so it's variable. I understand that. Okay, having said that, I think you're missing it. Mike McDonald brought forth back in 2000, we worked on that in 2000, and then it got canned in early 2001, because the figures were astronomical, and he was on target on on his approach. We were looking at impervious areas. And to qualify that, I want to say this. I went out, took some hours. I'm going to use ZEC, for example, okay? They have a 37,800 square foot building. They would fall at $2,400 a month. I'm sorry, $2,400 a year. A year.
Right.
Part of this is based on how much water you're contributing to the stormwater. This is why we have different fee structures. They have 285,000 square feet of impervious area. They are 32 times more square footage of impervious area than I am, but yet their fee would be anywhere from $1,000 a year to only maybe $400 a year more than me. Henry Martin's down there, their fee would be less than mine if I got hit at the 2,000. Okay, theirs would be less than mine because of the size of their building. And what's killing me is if you're treating the rental separate, boom, boom, you know, $8 a pop for each rental. And understand you got to have a structure that will handle that, or you've got some big apartment complexes that are getting by pretty cheap. So I understand that. All in all, ZEC with their new lot added is 491,000 square feet. That's 32 times bigger than me. 285,000 of it is impervious. The rest of it, it's all, the 491,000 is impervious, but they have a catch retention. And that covers part of it, but there's 285,000, like I said, that it doesn't cover.
Phil, we've done the math for you. I don't want to mean to interrupt you, but we did the ERU math, and if we did it on impervious areas, ZEC would go from $2,400 a year to $12,358 a year.
Well, let me finish.
Okay. I just give you the math.
I understand that, and that was the problem then. Back in 2000, ZEC would have gone to $1,100 a month, which was $13,200 a year. I'm not advocating that. What didn't happen on the impervious area, and I think that's something worth looking at, and wish it had come to me last week, but I think it's something I'm thinking, how can you balance this thing? The impervious area wouldn't have to be at one rate. I'll give you an example. You can go, okay, to catch the smaller businesses so they're paying their fair share, let's say that on 5,000 square foot of impervious area, that would be your structure and your parking lot or whatever you had. If your total was 5,000 square foot, and you can change that number, it can be 7,000 or whatever. But just as an example, you can say 10 cents a square foot. So based on 5,000, you would be saying, okay, you've got $500 fee. You got 5,000 square foot of impervious area, which is not that big. If a person had the next 5,000, you can break that down to a nickel a square foot. And then every square foot after that can be 2 or 2.5 cents a square foot. You would end up with somebody like Zach, you know, with all the water runoff that they do have, for example, you'd put them probably up around 7,000. You'd put Walmart probably up, you know, away, some of the big ones. And you would bring me back up from what you're proposing cuts me. And if I can convince that I've got apartments that aren't rentable, which I do up there, I don't only rent a few, your proposal would save me money. But I'm here thinking the two things. I don't want to pay unfairly, and I don't want to see some huge properties not pay what they should, and I want to see you get enough money gathered in to make, if you're going to do this stormwater, let's do it. Let's get the funds we need and make it in. And I think if you do that and prorate, if you figure it and prorate it, and what Paul was saying was absolutely right. It was astronomical, and Zach right now would be probably 15, 16,000 if you, according to my figures, and that's not doable. But, you know, there's no sense to hit a small business or somebody for 800 or 1,000 or so many, and a place with all the parking and impervious area like Walmart or something to get off for.
I understand.
For 3,500 or something.
Okay.
You know, I think if you look at the impervious area and do a prorated charge on it, you might be able to generate more money and be fair and not do damage to people. So it's
Thank you, Mr. Urban.
something to think of. You know,
Okay.
may get you more money than what you was planning on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now,
Thank you.
thanks, Mr. Urban. Before you leave, Phil, no, I thought you were walking out the door.
Want me to come back up?
No, I really don't. I don't. And I understand what you're saying about the impervious area, but we already went down that road. We were there last year. We, as a commission, made the decision that we're going with square footage of the footprint of the building. Yes, I know that, and those are things that we'll get in a focus group. And those are good points, but we've already made that decision that we're going to go on the square footage of the building rather than the land mass, for a variety of reasons. But, I mean, we already made that call.
I'll shut up. Just let me. The only way impervious is if you prorate it.
Well, I understand, but I understand your, thing, but we went with square footage. Now, with the proposal that, Commissioner Griswold's or Commissioner Dedeke's, which cuts all the commercial and industrial by either 33% or by 50%, we still hit that critical mass of money, which is 1.1 million.
Question.
Yes, sir.
You made a valid point. I see that we're treating the small businesses, that they have a smaller fee than the bigger businesses.
Correct.
Why not look at it from the standpoint from the residential side too, for the individuals that have the smaller homes compared to citizens that have bigger homes?
If we can
That
get
would be
1.1 million,
Well,
yeah.
this idea, because you made a valid point. You got
There's no
somebody-
other process that is more customizable to cities. We did a little bit of work and we looked at 20 cities, and every single one of those 20 cities does it completely different. And what I would say is the direction you're going tonight is actually counter to what most cities do. If we did some work on what ZEC would pay in 20 other cities with their formula in place, 24 here, you're looking at 12,300, 10,200, 9,700, 14,238, 11,118. These are in those cities what they would pay if they were located there. So again, it's really up to the commission. There's no right way to do this. If you want to create different categories, that's fine. But what I'd like to not do is have ERUs associated with residential but not commercial or industrial. You could have classifications like you had. The counter argument, the devil's argument is there are large houses in the city that are not on the city's stormwater system. Just like there are businesses now who have put in best practices where they contain all their stormwater on site. So every point has a counterpoint when you get into this. Larger houses have large yards, less impermeable area. You could do whatever you want to do, and there's a good argument for all of them, and there's a counter argument for all of them.
Just an idea.
Yeah.
Something that if we get this started, we can always adjust it
Make some
later.
adjustments, okay.
Yeah, and look at how it goes.
Okay.
So as,
I think the lowest amount we can do is,
I'm in favor of Mr. Griswold's.
okay, we have two proposals, and Commissioner Dedeky made his first, Commissioner Griswold made his first. Unless there's any more discussion, Commissioner Dedeky's proposal, we'll call it Proposal A, was cutting commercial and industrial by 33%, making the annual residential and all the residential fees being $7.10 a month or $85.20 a year. That would raise $1,140,000 per year at today's rate, number of businesses and houses we have. Is there a consensus on Commissioner Dedeky's? Did I miss something?
Well, go ahead and give us a synopsis real quick on Commissioner.
Okay, Commissioner Griswold's was the $84 a month versus, annually, $7 a month versus $7.10 a month for residential, and cutting commercial and industrial by 50%. His would raise $1,107,216, or $1,100,000, 35,000 less than Commissioner Dedeky's, but still there. So we have two. We can't take a vote. We need a consensus on one or the other.
Means he can do 50%, and I never went that far on mine. I just scratched mine out this afternoon. I will withdraw mine.
Okay. Okay.
I'll go with Mr. Griswold.
Do we have a consensus on that one? Okay, so our consensus is everything you see on the commercial and industrial would be dropped by 50%, and the annual rate is $84
For residential units.
per residential and multifamily.
You said 84?
$84, $7 a month.
$7 a month.
$7 a month. And let's try to schedule an information session sometime, let's say 2 weeks out approximately.
You want it after work or before
I'd say
work?
after work,
6 o'clock?
6
5
o'clock.
6
6 o'clock, we'll pick it, 6 o'clock, and I would like to do it 6 o'clock on a Tuesday night. Do it right in here, and if there's an overflow crowd, I'll bring in
we'll film it.
loudspeakers.
We'll set everything back up in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
light court.
But, yeah, I think we're here, and then we can conduct business thereafter. Okay? Okay, so we've got that, I don't wanna say put to bed, but,
Good, Paul?
Commissioner.
I'm good, whatever.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the schedule, we go, on the agenda, going back to the regular order, is Shelter of Hope presentation. Sister Vicki Perkins is here.
Yes,
Yeah, come on up here, man.
Thank you for having me tonight. What Paul had asked me to do was come in and kind of just give you an overview of how we started and what we're doing, et cetera. So I'm going to do that as quickly as I can. We actually began with Welcome Central, which is a clearinghouse for people living in poverty and provides transportation and direct services. We did that for about 7 months, and that one was actually run by the Sisters of Charity. We did that for about 7 months, and in that 7 months, one of the things we found was in interviewing people and taking a simple intake form, there were 58 homeless people that we had interviewed in those 7 months. So we called all the churches together, because we had asked the churches about this from the beginning. And that's how we came to the decision to do what we did, was input from churches and agencies and individuals. So what we decided was there obviously was a situation that there were homeless in Leavenworth and that we needed to try to address that. The 35 churches came together and in record time, from September to December, actually opened the Leavenworth Shelter of Hope, Leavenworth Interfaith Shelter of Hope. That shelter has been open for 3 years. We started with Welcome Central down at 314 Delaware. We were there about 1.5 years. And during that time, we started doing the landlord-tenant contract with the city. And just on that piece, I just want to emphasize again that I really think that whole thing of some kind of inspection or something with that is really essential, as I've gone into apartments to look, and the code and inspection people really have no power to do anything. So I would really encourage us to look at that. But we have continued to do that at Welcome Central. So we started the shelter. It has opened every night. All of this is run by volunteers. We hire a shelter director, and we hire intake checkout coordinators, 2 hours a day. But other than that, everybody that does it is a volunteer. Takes 70 a week for the overnight shelter, in addition to Welcome Central and the day shelter. What we found once we opened the night shelter was there truly was a need for people to be someplace during the day. And so we opened, we didn't open, we just continued with Welcome Central, and we kind of became de facto the day center, because there was no place else. And the day center basically is a place for them to eat and a place for them to have someplace comfortable to be during the day. We do not do it 24 hours a day, because we don't think that's the best thing, because it doesn't give you any real motivation to move out of homelessness if you're covered 24/7. So what we found was it was very difficult to conduct the business of Welcome Central at the same time that we were serving as a day shelter. And so we decided that we needed to get a building where we could do the three things together, rather than in separate buildings and two things combined as one. We looked at a lot of buildings in Leavenworth. It just didn't work. We couldn't find anything that would work for us. We knew we wanted one floor, because the shelter at that time was up on second floor, and we knew that, we weren't handicapped accessible at all. And so we knew we needed to do that. We also knew that 2 flights of stairs every night for volunteers who were mostly my age, running up and down those stairs with laundry all night was not the best thing for people either. So when we decided that we couldn't find a place, we decided to build. And I will say it's the last building I'll build, but yeah, I'm glad we did it, but I don't ever want to do it again. But it's been good. We have the building down at 311 Kiowa. All 3 entities are together. The night shelter opens at 9 p.m. and is open till 7 a.m. And now at 7 a.m., and the night shelter is simply a safe place to sleep. No other services are offered at that time. So it's just a safe place to sleep.
No showers.
Nothing at that time. Then at 7 a.m., now they can simply walk across the hall to the day shelter. And the day shelter is open from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. We do serve breakfast, and we serve a full lunch each day. Those are all provided by people who bring things into us. We have probably 21 people that bring in casseroles at different times for the lunch part of the day. People have been extremely generous with that, extremely generous. And so we've been able to feed people every day. We have probably, and you do have the annual report there, just so if you like statistics, if you don't, it'll put you to sleep at night. So either thing, you get something from it. But generally we have probably 20 to 40 during the day at different times. Not all of them at one time normally, but around mealtime we have more than the other times. But people do come and go. We are open 7 days a week now, because prior to that, we were just open Monday through Thursday. And so 3 days a week, people had to find something all day. That's really hard when it's very cold weather, and it creates some real issues for people when that happens. And so now we're open 7 days a week, same hours every single day. It's been good to be down there, all together. A lot of times I need to know, I have somebody that calls and wants to know something about what happened in the shelter. All I have to do is walk across the hall and find out. It is convenient. We do provide foot lockers for the people who are homeless so that they can keep whatever they can fit in that foot locker, they can keep with us so they don't have to carry it around all day. We have a lot of people that come in that are not homeless, And we have a lot of people that come in that are not staying at the shelter. We're running right now about 16.6 people per night. Our highest has been 29.
How many beds do you have?
We have 30 set up, but, you know, we have the whole building now, so, and we have another set of cots, so we could, if we ever really need it. Interestingly, on the really bad nights are not our highest number of people. I think, and this is just guesswork on my part, but I think times like that, people let them come in, you know, sleep on their couch or on the floor or something, where on decent nights they don't. So the only thing I know is we can't predict. We do not know what numbers will be. 2 different nights, Linda and I have gone down and spent the night because we thought we were going to be way over. Neither time were we needed. So that's kind of an overview of where we are and what we're doing. I'd be glad to answer specific questions on anything you have.
I have a question.
Sure.
You said in the beginning you had 58 homeless was at the very beginning, and now you're talking about 20 to 40 during the day or 16 at night or whatever. So you really haven't seen a huge increase
No,
out of town of homeless that are being brought in and.
No, we have, first place, like at one point, and it was KU Med that was calling us and saying, we're going to bring people up. Well, for 2 times we let that happen.
That was years ago.
No, that was about a year ago, probably.
Yeah, okay.
Year and a half, maybe. And then we realized these people got up here, they didn't know Leavenworth.
Right.
They didn't even sometimes wake up in the morning and know where they were. And so we do not take people from any other, we got a call today from somebody from Osawatomie that they wanted to bring at some point. But she's a Leavenworth resident and has been for years. Okay, she can come. But unless they're residents of Leavenworth, we do not accept them at night. Okay. And in terms of people who come to us during the day, the vast, vast majority are people who have been in Leavenworth for years. There are a few that come in. One of the things that happens that Welcome Central deals with quite a bit is we have people who are here in town, came to town because of a relationship. The relationship breaks up, and usually it's mom and the kids then that are left here. Their support system is someplace else, and they have no way to get there. So we buy a lot of bus tickets out of Leavenworth for people to be able to get home, because you need to be where your support system is in a time like that. But in terms of people who have just come to Leavenworth, that number is very small that we have dealt with.
I have to say that Welcome Central has taken the place of what we used to have in our SRS office, our local SRS office, and social workers. And I mean, we had a team of, I don't know, 10 people that were over there that we don't have anymore. And so Welcome Central actually does a lot of that, helping people to get to where they need to be.
You also help find jobs, employment?
We do. We do a lot of taking, what we've found is, you know, if your life has been destroyed by something, and sometimes it's your own fault, you know, but it's been destroyed and you're down at the bottom, your self-confidence isn't very high. And so if we say to you, okay, now here's a good place, you go apply to this. A week later, we talk to them and they haven't done anything. So now what we're doing, now that we're separate from the day center, we're taking them to that place. We're helping them fill out the application. And then when they get the job, like we buy bikes or get the bikes from the prison and work with them, because transportation is so hard. You get a job and how do you get there? And so we work with them to be sure that the job they're going to try to get is one they'll be able to keep, because it doesn't do you any good to get a job if you're not going to keep it.
Right.
We have had, since the Alliance closed, several people come in that really need a domestic violence shelter. And what we have done, we have a list of all domestic violence shelters in this general area. There's one in Lawrence, there's one in Atchison, there's several in Kansas City, and we will take them to the shelter. You know, we'll call first and make sure they can go, and then we will drive them if we have to. A lot of times they have had their own, and we haven't had a lot of those, but we have had probably about 4 that we've had to get into.
Really good if we could get that
It
started
certainly
up
would.
again, because
It certainly
children are in
would.
school here.
It's a need.
And
It's
it
a
pulls the
need.
children out of school when they have to go to Kansas City.
Yep, without a doubt.
And you do have some people that are on the declaring PNG do not fly list, or not welcome.
That's right. I just
Yeah,
talked to
mean,
Pat Kitchen about one tonight.
Yeah, and we don't need
Yeah,
to-
we
but-
do. And
but-
we try not to do that unless we have to, but obviously we have to make sure people are safe where we are
Right.
too, just like everybody else does.
And the people that come at night, if they're not on your
Yeah,
closed list, you make no value judgments. You don't say.
Right. It's a low barrier
"You need to,
shelter." Yeah.
Go out and pick up 10 pounds of trash before
yeah.
you sleep here.
Yeah,
And
no, it's a
you-
low barrier shelter if they can take care of themselves, but they do have to be able to do that. And we have had some people come in so intoxicated that they can't, and then they can't stay.
Okay,
You know, so, but basically, no, we don't, we ask them if they're a vet, we ask them birth date, name, but it's all just on what they tell us. We don't
Right.
check any of that.
and so you have 30 beds, and the most you've had since you've opened?
29,
You have 29?
no,
beds.
30 beds,
And
and the
most you've had
highest
is
was
29
29.
people,
Uh-huh.
but you're averaging 16, 17 a night.
Yeah,
So that's,
yeah.
and
There are a lot of
Would-
people that are homeless that don't come to us.
I understand that. During the summer, do you think those numbers go up or go down?
Well,
Well, you'd think they would, but, you know,
But-
using the
yeah.
coldest nights, her numbers go down, and
yeah.
you'd think they'd go
And
up. So
actually, I don't remember which year it was, but one year, August was our highest month.
Was it? Yeah, see?
So tell me, I don't know.
Yeah, there
I
probably
don't
is
know.
no rhyme or reason.
You cannot predict it.
Okay. If you have 30 beds, and so you will probably have to shut the door when you have 30 people.
No.
But you have those cots.
We
that
have
you-
cots and we have the room now, because
Yeah,
it's
so
ours.
that
So
could
we'll have to call in more volunteers, but so far we haven't had to do that.
Okay.
Do you have enough volunteers?
We can always use
Need
volunteers.
volunteers.
Yeah, that's a struggle to keep them, but people have been incredibly good. You know, when you work third shift from 1:45 to 5 a.m., that's not a lot of fun, but people do it.
I have two other quick questions.
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, does the Leavenworth Interfaith Community of Hope have a board of directors or
Yes.
a board?
Uh-huh. We have a board of 9 people.
Okay, and you mentioned some of the things that I think you're tracking as far as your metrics in terms of whether you're achieving your mission, which I think is a very good mission statement. But what's the board, what are they saying in terms of what they want to see in terms of maybe one or two high-level metrics?
They're looking at the number of people we're able to serve. And then they were looking at whether or not, what we're able to do. How well are we able to get people to
Services.
other things? You know, like the day center, it's just a safe, kind of a safe place to be, like the night shelter. But Welcome Central's when they're ready. And honestly, we have to wait till they're ready, because it doesn't do any good if we say you should get a job.
Yeah.
You know, that's not gonna work. It's when they're ready. And we got a guy in today that was with us at the shelter and at Welcome Central for probably over a year, a little over a year. Came in every day, sat and read. No trouble to anybody. Wonderful man. He was 57 when his life fell apart. He now has a full-time job, a car, an apartment, is doing very well, and once every couple weeks, he comes in and either brings us granola bars and food, or today he handed me $20, because he knows what it was like. But it took him a year before he got to that point. When he got to that point, he took off, but it took a while.
Do you have a Facebook site or anything like that?
We do.
Okay.
We
okay.
do.
I just wondering, because that's a good
Do I know
story.
it? No, because I don't do Facebook. They do it. We have people that are smarter than me, so
Yeah,
thank
well,
God.
just getting the word out about those
Yeah,
good
right.
stories.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Commissioner Dedekin,
No, I'm
anything?
good. She did a very good
What is it that the city can help do to support
Well,
you?
I can't talk enough about what the city has done.
Okay.
Over and over, and, you know, when you're my age, you've been to quite a few places, you know,
Yeah.
and you've worked with a lot of different governments. Leavenworth's wonderful, in terms of people working together. That's what makes this work in the first place. It's all the people coming together. Nobody could do it alone. No one church could do it, no one group, but they came together. And that's the same thing at the city. The staff will do everything they can to help you. The commission has been marvelous. You know, the fire department, police department, we haven't gone to anybody that hasn't been helpful. So we have no hesitation to come to you if we need you, you know, but it's been very positive, and as I said, that doesn't happen every place. Believe me, it doesn't. So, thank you.
I just have a couple things, Sister Vicky, just to, I know the answers, but I want to ask the questions anyway. There's always not always, but there's a persistent rumor in town at times that prison families
Yeah.
are the problem for homelessness. And I was at the Homeless Coalition meeting at the library a month or so ago. And I know the sheriff, police chief, a couple of the pastors in town saying, been here, we haven't seen that. Have you seen that?
No, we have not.
Yeah.
We
And
have
that's-
not. It surprises me, but no, we have not. We have very few times, I probably could count on one hand the number of families that have come in that are here because a loved one's in prison.
Right. And I know.
We've had people that want to come visit and will stay at the shelter while they're visiting. But in terms of people that come here and stay, we really haven't.
Yeah, city manager Kramer and I were at federal prison on Thursday, right? And that subject came up, and they said they really don't experience it either. It's always, you just assume that, just like
Yeah.
if you're not from Leavenworth, you tell people you're from Leavenworth, and they say, aren't you scared because these prisoners are coming all
Yeah.
around, and you don't think about that. The other thing is, there's rumors that go out at times, and sometimes they're pushed out from even elected officials, say that Platte City or Wyandotte County is bringing up people and dropping them off, and ask for proof, and I don't know, I've heard that, but have you ever seen that where an entity, a government entity, or an NGO, non-government
Right.
organization kind of associated with the government, have dropped people off at your?
We had one time that somebody from Platte City did bring some people over. We talked with the person and said, you can't do that. We can't accept the
Was it a person, or was
person.
it the government?
It was a police,
The police, okay.
so it was government.
So,
But
but
that was the only time, and we said, and he called again, and we said, no, remember, you can't do that. This is supported by Leavenworth people, it's for Leavenworth
Okay.
people, and so we don't take them.
Okay. So,
We'll always ask that
Okay.
if somebody.
well, Sister Vicky,
Mark, one thing.
oh, yes, sir.
I'd be remiss with the state representative in the room if I didn't let Sister Vicky talk just briefly about the challenges she faces with mental health.
Yeah. Yeah, you can speak at the end. Oh, yeah, I got it.
Yeah, okay, that's probably the biggest piece we hit. There are a number of people, the gentleman that I just talked to Chief Kitchen about tonight is somebody with severe mental health problems. He's dangerous to people, I'm afraid, and so I'm probably gonna not let him come in. But there are so many and so few ways to help these people. We have people who are ready for help. You know, and again, it's a thing, you gotta get ready. But we have people that we have tried to get into rehab places or to mental health places, and we can't get them in. There, you know, unless you have money, there isn't a spot for you anymore. So to find some kind of mental health resources, that is an essential. Cushing just had a big gathering the other night, and that was the first thing I said when they said, what do we need? I said, we need mental health services. We're desperate for that, very desperate, so thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Well, Sister Vicky, I know 2 members of this commission are Lutherans, and so we don't have saints in our denomination.
But you do pretty well. I was
You're
with
the
the
closest
Lutherans
thing
last
to a
week.
saint I've ever met.
Oh, God, you're in trouble.
And,
You're in big trouble.
you know, what you have done, for this community, and what you continue to do is just marvelous, and.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah,
It's a
and
lot of people.
the way you were able to coalesce together 35 different churches, and
That's amazing.
it's,
Yeah,
you've
it's
done an
great.
outstanding job, and
It's great. People
Yeah.
here are wonderful.
yeah, and
not
everyone has
moving.
great respect for you and what
Thank
you
you.
accomplished.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Vicky.
Next item is West Star Energy Substation presentation.
Mr. Mayor and Commission, we've been, Public Works staff, specifically Taylor, Tedder, and I, and even city planning staff have been working with Westar now for, a couple months on a substation project that they're planning to help the expansion that we are anticipating in the southwest part of our city. So Westar is here tonight to share some of those plans and what they've been working on for the last couple months, or longer than that.
Not too much longer. Hello, my name is Katie Walbridge. I'm an engineer in the substation group at Westar Energy. So we are proposing a substation, calling it the Richardson Substation. It'll be 115 kV to 12 kV, which means it's going to go from really the big power lines to what serves your homes. The project overview, this is to support some of the growth that we see on the west side of the city. Obviously, you guys have the large industrial park going in right now, and then there's gonna be homes over there eventually. So, this is to support that. We do have, some aging infrastructure. It's not quite overloaded, but it does make maintenance a little bit harder because we are not able to transfer the load as much onto some of the older ones, currently. And so it does make maintenance a little harder if we have, to do some work in those older substations. The proposed substation will also is a $7 million investment in Leavenworth community. And we do believe that you guys are gonna grow, so we are confident in our investments. The location is approximately 20th Street in Eisenhower. It's about a quarter of a mile north of Eisenhower Road. So we chose this site. We have a few criteria that go into this site. We know it's a 40-acre site, and we only need about 10 acres or so when it comes to grading and the actual substation size. So we have to go with what's available. This landowner was willing to sell us the 40 acres, and we like to go with the approximate, or it's better if it's closer to the transmission line. So we can't see them on here. I don't know if I have a cursor. Nope. The transmission line goes from the northeast corner to the southwest corner. So it basically just goes diagonal across that. And one of the restrictions on this property too, and you can kind of see it on the corner on that southwest corner, there's a gas line that reaches across the property that basically it makes an X across the property. So that restricted us a little bit as far as location-wise. But we are directly under the transmission line, which does limit our effect on the other neighbors. So I think we might affect one neighbor across the street, maybe, and we only have about 5 poles that are gonna be affected, so that's good. Like I said, this was close to the future growth. This was an old Google Earth image, and obviously there's a lot of dirt work going on today if you were to get a new one. And yeah, that is the location-wise. And feel free if you guys have any questions to stop me. Yes.
That's 40-acre tract, the blue area is where you're gonna build
Yes,
that,
I should have
but,
specified that.
And you said you just needed 10 acres,
It's not 10 acres,
that's
yep.
not 10 acres.
Yep.
That's-
So, when we're
That's
looking
more.
for sites, we typically look for 10 acres. It allows us to put in our driveways to allow us to get off the road, allows us to do the grading and drainage we need, and then it just gives us enough buffer space between other properties that we can get our mowers and our equipment in and stuff. And then usually if we need to put in more transmission lines, it gives us room to put those lines around the sub. The actual substation is 250 feet by 350 feet. And that's about 2 acres. So really fenced in size, it's only about 2 acres. The rest is green space.
Okay.
The next slide shows that.
Katie, can you go back one
Yeah,
slide?
go ahead.
Another reason we liked that site on that location is if you look at the subdivision just to the south and west of that, that's gonna grow north, and then it can grow a little bit east. And Westar has indicated, and if I'm still in your thunder, that
Yep,
you're
you're
gonna
good,
cover
you're
later.
good.
Westar has indicated that once they're done, they are very open to allowing development or selling off areas of their property that they're not needed.
Okay.
And that east part of the property that's by 20th really is unbuildable because of the gas transmission line that goes through there. So where they've situated that allows for the most development that is possible probably on that land going forward.
Good. One of the reasons I don't think we're quite ready to sell it yet, only because we want to get farther along in the transmission line design, because we don't want to have to go back to the landowner and ask for more transmission line easement, but definitely a possibility once we get that finalized. This shows the site in general, so you can see that gas easement going across that top corner. So now we're rotated, so north is going to be to the right. So this shows our entrances. Like I said, we like our entrances to allow enough room for our trucks to pull off the road, so we're not obstructing traffic. It's a safer environment for us and allows them to open the gates without being in the roadway. We are proposing some landscaping. a mixture of junipers and some fern grass. And then we also, one of the initiatives recently is the Monarch Butterfly Highway. And so we do have some wildflower seedings to go around this to promote that. We are on one of the teams of sorts to promote that. So, and we're going to keep that in the area near the substation. That way, if we want to sell off the property or when we go to sell off the property, we're not affecting the other people around us. The expected start time of this is a little ways out. It's 2025 right now. And the way our process works is we go and look for land. Sometimes it takes us a while, and sometimes it's the first person you approach. And this time it was the first person we approached. So our process went a little quicker than we anticipated. But that's just kind of the way we see, it's just the way we're predicting right now based off of what's out there. But by having the land, we're able to move quicker if, you know, something else comes in. So that's one of the benefits of having the property now. I need to mention that, well, I'll mention it in the next one.
What would be something that would happen? Just
Additional
housing?
customers, A lot of times we'll just have proposed customers come up and ask us, hey, we're gonna bring X amount of load onto the property, can you handle this? And so sometimes we'll have to build a new sub, sometimes we're able to just bring new equipment in. I need to mention that as far as future growth, we do build these to handle as much growth as we anticipate. So this would be the maximum size of this. This would not grow on the property. So right now I'll show you in a few slides what I mean by, we'll just put in what we need from the beginning. So I'll put a disclaimer on this. This is from another project, but it gives you a good idea of, you know, what you're gonna see from the road. So we're proposing a stone cast fencing. This would be the back side, so this would be looking from the west. This kind of shows the general equipment layout. Our tallest piece of equipment, excluding the poles, is about 45 feet, and that's to the very tips of those switches. So the bus works about 20-some. So with a 9-foot fence, you're just gonna see the very tops of that equipment.
How do those poles relate to the poles that are out there right now in size? The ones that are in the.
I wanna say that the ones out there now are probably 25 to 50 feet taller.
Okay. So these
Taller, they're like 80 feet poles that goes along.
Yeah,
that,
so these poles in this picture are 75 feet.
Okay,
So they're
yeah.
at least 100
The
feet.
ones that you see
And I
floating on.
anticipate a little bit high, I think they're a little bit bigger than that. I don't have that number in front of me. This kind of gives you a good visual of, you know, what the front would look like from 20th Street. So people driving by, this would be the most visible side. We do have our stone cast fencing. You can kind of see the equipment. This is elevated a little bit. One of the substation that this was from is in Manhattan, and it kind of goes, the whole property slopes down a little bit. So you're kind of looking into it a little bit more than you would probably look into this one. And this would be kind of an aerial view. I'm going to put a big disclaimer. Those observation panels over to the left would not be in this substation. Those were specifically for, we were working with one of the schools so that they could use this to train their linemen. So ignore those areas. It'll be fully stone cast. But this kind of gives you a good visual when I say that we're going to put in what we need now, and this gives us another couple more area to put in what we need later. So we won't have to expand the sub at all, and we're able to do it all within the existing footprint. So real life fence examples. These are from some of our substations that we've installed in Topeka. I think one of the requests was to make the wall a little bit more earthy toned than the stark gray of the concrete, which is no big deal. And then this kind of gives you the visual of the gate. You can see into it, but you really don't see a lot, so. And that is all I have, if you guys have any questions for me.
Did you say, when do you expect to start construction on this?
It would be about 2025, right now is what we're anticipating. It feels, I know, doesn't that feel a long ways out?
So the current infrastructure, whatever the current infrastructure is, will be able to handle this new business and technology park that we have, and plus the big housing development that's going in there?
As far as I know, yes.
Because that seems like kind of far out.
Yeah.
But I know it
It's
may
one of those
depend
things,
on-
once we have the land, it's easy to pull in. So usually our land purchasing process takes about 1.5 to 2 years. This one, it's kind of been quicker. I think we've only been at it for about 6 or 7 months. So what we do is we get an option with the property owner, and we can extend that option and do those kind of things. And that allows us to permit the property on their behalf. And that way we're not tied down to a spot if the permitting doesn't go through, so.
I mean, is that something that the city and West Ark could discuss over the next few years, or is it just?
If there's budget money available, it definitely could be a discussion. As far as, we would just have to have that load.
On moving up their, construction here earlier than 2025.
Yeah.
So,
We have a whole group of, we call them the planners, but basically, they just look and see what substation is serving what the load is gonna be, anticipated this. So, you know, if there is a need, we're not gonna leave you guys out here, you know, out on a limb. We're gonna come we're gonna come build this if there's a need.
Great.
Any other questions?
I did have a question, not so much for Katie, but, out there on 17th Street, near where Mark and I live, there's been, today I saw some RNS or RNL electrical services. Is that a company putting up, telephone? Is that a telephone, or is that electric, or?
They're contractors that are working for us that are coming in we got on a reliability job, that are going in, they're replacing a bunch of bad poles. We had deemed 70 poles within that area that they're in replacing. They have 2 crews that are conducting.
Yeah, they had, I don't know if they had there were a lot of trucks there though today, and.
Some of them are back in between houses, yeah, I watched.
Yeah.
We got, unfortunately, over in that area, there is a lot of private easement.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not, I just wondered, I was just curious.
Yeah,
in terms of.
no, it's a reliability project that we have going on to, for the last few years, we've had a lot of links over in that area.
Okay.
That we're trying to eliminate.
By putting up new poles or new,
And
Sir, why don't you come up and introduce, because people on TV can't hear you or see you.
I just,
And, well, you need to step back a little bit, and the makeup artist will give you a little makeup. You're now on
Dang it,
TV.
why didn't you tell me? No, I'm
My
kidding.
name's John Wagner, I'm the local EDS here in Leavenworth. So, I run the line crews here in town.
okay.
So what we have going on right now with the RNS that's over here, we have a reliability project that we're trying to eliminate. We had lots of outages over in that general area, 17th, going on out, Lecompton, and different things. And we're trying to fix some of the issues that we haven't touched for several years. So hopefully your lights don't blink like they have.
Yeah, and that does happen, I mean, but actually, I think in the last year or two, it's been better, and I don't live far
That's
from
good.
where I just talked about where they were working today, so.
It's been a 2-year project that we've been working on. So.
I live in that area, probably 500 yards from where your trucks are as the crow flies, maybe less, and we've lost power quite often. We're all underground, and my wife always says, we love it, you know, what happens, but, you know, I know that.
Correct.
Well, this will help us.
That's
That'll be
good.
That's good news. Okay.
And like this substation here will benefit too down the road to help with the loop feed in case we have storms roll through.
Yep.
That takes something out, gives us opportunity to feed from another direction.
Okay.
Makes
Over in
that
that
switching
territory.
easier.
Good.
Sounds good.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Any other
thank you.
questions? Do you have any questions for us?
I don't think so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Next item is the Thornton Street project funding.
Our Assistant City Manager Taylor Tedder will take the lead on this one.
Good evening, Mr. Tedder.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. Earlier this year, you deemed Thornton Street a major project that we should look at funding options for. I do want to make note that the funding options that I'll be overviewing tonight do not affect our annual FFE funds or the $1.3 million that we dedicate to general road maintenance every year.
What's FFE stand for?
Federal Funds Exchange,
Oh,
money
okay.
that comes to the city from the state.
Yeah.
Right.
We dealt with that a couple weeks ago, okay.
So I researched a large number of different options that are considered best practices from ICMA and the GFOA, and some of those are considered non-viable options, and I'll go ahead and talk about those right now. Some cities use special assessments where they assess certain properties for roads. In this project, it doesn't work well. Some other entities can use TIF funding for road projects. This area doesn't have a lot of businesses in it, so that also does not make sense. And then one other option would be a local option income tax, and that doesn't sound like a viable option either.
Do any cities in Kansas have an income tax on, like an earnings tax?
Not in Kansas, but Kansas City, Missouri.
Oh, I know that, yeah, I know that. But,
So anyway, our first viable option would be a millage increase on property taxes. In 2018, 1 mill generates approximately just over $207,000. A 3.1 average increase would fund the $5.5 million Thornton reconstruction project on a 10-year term. And in that first year, that would increase the taxes on a $100,000 home about just over $28. And on a $200,000 home, it would generate just over $57 more a year for them. Our second option would be attempting to pay the bond payment on the road out of our existing CIP or countywide sales tax dollars. In 2019, we have about $754,000 to work with in the CIP. But that would, of course, push other priorities off for that 10 or 15-year term that you decided to bond the road. And we typically fund things like the bridge program and computer replacement, traffic signals, the tractors you just approved for the parks, public works, ball field renovations, things of that nature. So we'd only have $101,000 to work with for those types of projects. Staff doesn't believe that to be very adequate at that point. So the next option that we have would be combining different sources with an element of a smaller millage increase on property taxes. So we could look at different sources to fund the project. The analysis that our finance director was able to come up with for me would increase it at 2.28 mils, and then we'd be able to utilize other funds from mixed sources to create that full bond payment on the 10-year term for the road. Option 3B would be combining different sources with no element of a tax increase. We would have to look at all kinds of different funds to make up that number, from stormwater to curbs, sidewalks, et cetera. So the proposed 10-year bond payment averages out to be about $653,000. Looking at the numbers, that would leave only $151,000 left for any projects during a 10-year term period. And then the final option that I came up with, when you were talking about your roads plan, Muncie was a significant thing that you looked at. And if you were to do both Thornton and Muncie, that would be about a little bit over a 5 mil increase and fund a $11.6 million bond. And on a $100,000 home in the first year, it would increase their taxes about $57, and on the first year for a $200,000 home, that would be a $115 increase a year, and that's on a 10-year bond term. We could look at a 15. So I've also, the attachments to this are those different funding scenarios, and then I did pull the tax rates for first and second class cities in Kansas, and there are only 6 cities of the first class that are lower tax rates than ours.
And how many cities of the first class are there, 35?
There are 28 entities.
28.
And then when you look at the cities of the second class, we're much lower than the majority. I can pass this around as well.
Thank you, Mr. Tedder, for that analysis. And we, as a commission, agreed that we want the Thornton Road project from 2nd Avenue west to 10th Avenue, or it could be from 5th Street. I can't remember what we're looking at, either 2nd Avenue or 5th Street, one block either way. And we're estimating a $5 to $6 million, just a rough swag at it.
Yeah, six and a half.
And your first one is 3.1 mils, which, you know, is, I don't want to say a considerable tax increase, but considerable, it's 10%. But, you know, we charge 32, we have 32 mils here in town, and to do that road for 10 years, we'd have to increase everyone's real estate taxes by 10%. Another thought that's not on here, you know, we're going forward now with the stormwater plan. We've got that, and we've got the funding source. On the countywide sales tax, of which we pay, the city of Leavenworth probably pay 55 to 60% of what's generated, and we get about 35% of it back, the way it's distributed, and that's just the way the formula is. And I think right now that amounts to 2.6, 2.7, $2.8 million that we get distributed back from the county. And we have in the past taken 15% of that, or approximately $400,000, and used it for stormwater. Have we not?
Correct.
And so what if we take that $400,000 that we had allocated for stormwater, because we're solving the stormwater thing here.
I wouldn't use the word solving, but I'd address it.
Well, yeah, I mean, the funding on it, that we take that and instead of designating it for stormwater, we designate it for that, we can take that, bond it, and do it with no tax increase. My only concern, my question would be is, I want to make sure that that countywide sales tax is by formula and by statute, and not subject to some whim of some politician who might be on the Board of County Commissioners, whoever that might be, whenever they might be there.
Yeah, the only limiting factor on the countywide sales tax right now is the sunsetting provision of it, but that's not for 18 more years.
Yeah, so, but we only need, if we've got this 400,000 that we now had used for stormwater and redesignated for the Thornton Road project, we could do a 10-year bond or 12-year bond, whatever it might be. Once we could bond that money, and we could accomplish this with no tax increase. Sounds simple, but is that?
No, and that actually is one of the options Taylor came up with, other CIP sources. It's a CIP source like anything else. I mean, it's a CIP source like animal control building that we're doing now. So that is exactly one of the options. It's just, the commission has, for as long as I've been here, set aside that 50% from stormwater. Now, we do have potentially alternate dollars now. So it's possible, sure.
Well, I think we all agree Thornton Street needs to be done. It's in horrible shape, and there's other streets that are probably just as bad. That's a major one. We agreed to that, and we've got it. And we can't do it for free, and we need $5 million approximately, our best guess right now, to do that project. And I don't think that we want to delay it much. We would like to go into design this year and production or in construction next year. That's the plan. I don't know, what are your thoughts on, I don't want to say diverting, but taking 15% and dedicating it to the Thornton Street project, right, and removing it from the stormwater since we have another source?
Well, the first argument is that even with the $400,000, which would take the stormwater to $1.5 million, that's still probably not fully adequate. Now, we've gone from 400,000 to 1.1 million, so you'll be able to make more work, but you could certainly still use it in stormwater.
Yeah.
As far as the need being there. Second thing I would caution on the 5 million or 6 million, the project's not been designed yet.
Right.
So, if the commission goes forward, the first thing we would do is have it designed, and that would give you a much better cost estimate, but that's sort of irrelevant. The funding structure itself that you proposed is perfectly legitimate as a funding source to pay off debt.
And how can we, right now, we have 15% for stormwater, we have.
But it's not by ordinance. It's not by
So
ordinance.
we could change it next January and.
You have to
do it, but before budget time.
You could just indicate it now, and then we would reflect that in the CIP that's presented to you. There's no formal action you'd have to take.
Yeah, I would agree with that synopsis, because I'd be totally against any kind of a mill increase.
Yeah,
I would be against a sales tax or a tax or a millage increase.
And besides, some of the projects that are already laid out, and we hold back the stormwater, with what we've done tonight, we could still do some of those.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna abandon the project.
And if you,
Go ahead, Mr. Tedder.
if you do look under number 2, that bullet that says funding also comes available as other commitments drop off. So in 2020, when Second Street Bridge is paid off and network upgrades, then you can do some other projects with those funds, and animal control's paid off in 2025. So you'll have some funds to do other projects in the future.
But if we use that countywide sales tax at 15% that we have set aside for stormwater and use it for the called Thornton Street project, we're not affecting any of our CIP plans. Is that correct?
You would still need another 230.
Depends how long you wanted to bond it, but that's an internal issue. You would not be, no. The short answer is no. You would not be changing any CIP plans other than the allocation to stormwater.
Yeah. And if we didn't do that, but we used one of these other ones without a millage increase, we are cutting back on CIP projects and not giving us any type of
Yeah, you
growth
would,
possibility.
you would essentially neuter your entire program for 10 years.
So would this prevent us from doing any other road construction in the city?
It does not affect the
no.
annual road budget at all.
Yeah,
It's a separate project.
So what do you need from us, Mr. Kramer, Mr. Tedder?
That's
A
it.
consensus to
Good,
move
let's
forward.
discuss this some more. I threw out that 400,000 thing from the countywide sales tax, and that's barring a complete falling off the table of retail in the county. That's probably a fairly solid number. It has grown consistently for the last 25 years. And I imagine it will continue to grow, and depending on what the Supreme Court rules on the case they heard today on internet sales taxes, it'll either stay what it is, grow at a slow rate, or it'll grow geometrically here for a year or two.
That might be good.
So, it sounds like a good source of funding, it's not rolling the dice of, we're gonna get this funding or we're not gonna get this funding.
No,
It's not like getting a grant, it's there.
Right.
Do we have to make a decision before we actually get design projects started, or?
No, you'd see this in the CIP for Thornton Street funding.
Okay.
Yeah, we probably, if that's the direction you'd want to go, we would bring you the path forward. Let us work a little bit with our bond counsel on that and some timing issues, but that certainly gives a clarity to the direction you want to go.
Do you, Mr. Kramer, Mr. Tedder, Mr. Hooper, Mr. McDonald have any severe heartburn or sharpshoot us a little bit on if we take this 400,000 out of countywide sales tax? I know you take direction from us, but is there something, a big unintended consequence that we're not seeing here?
No, and I would caution that if you went any lower than what you've indicated tonight on stormwater, then you're really not coming out on top.
Yeah.
You're really not gaining anything. But I think if we're pretty solid with that, and it seemed we were, then I think it's a pretty fair trade-off.
Yeah. So, that's one thing to think about. We're gonna hear, on stormwater, what about this, that? We're kind of locked in this 1.1 million that we need. If we do this project without raising taxes, I think we got a winner. But it's gonna take some political will to make sure we push through with all these projects. So is that?
Yes,
with consensus?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, on the, you birth that countywide sales tax, thanks.
No tax increase.
No tax increase.
For those that are watching.
And we have Representative Pittman here is gonna give us a quick update. They go back in the session next week, I believe. Are you on your spring break? 30-day spring break, what is it?
Is this thing live?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you, Commissioner, for allowing me to come in at late notice. I did talk to the mayor, and I thought I'd come in. We go back into session on April 26th. This is the tail end of the session, meaning we've already pushed all our committee work through our bills and everything else. And so what we're working on now is the budget. We're finalizing the budget, and we were gonna work that before we take a break, but now we're waiting for April revenues to come in, so we get a very good estimate about how much money is coming in. And then we end on May 4th. And so I thought I'd just take a little bit of time, have a little discussion, and then maybe have a summary. Like, I'll come in and do a better wrap-up to you folks, you know, at a later date, maybe May or June. But I did want to just touch base, if there's anything, any questions you had regarding anything, I'll just give you an update. We did, you know, the constitutional crisis we had with education has been on our minds for the last 2 years. I came in 2 years ago with different commissioners. I think it was Commissioner Rainey and Commissioner Weekly, and we all universally agreed with you folks that we wanted to fully fund education, fully fund capers, stop sweeping transportation funds from the, you know, the T-Works project, as well as a couple of other initiatives. We were $1 billion in the hole at the time, and now we're not. And you know some of the corrective actions we took last year, and very tough decisions. And so now we have this, we still have this constitutional thing where we added about $290 million last year into the education budget. And now we have another $100 million this year that we've proposed that's been passed, been signed into law by Governor Collier, as well as another $100 million after that, and another $100 million after that, and so on, for the next 5 years. We don't know if that's going to be constitutional, but we fixed a lot of the problems that were constitutionally wrong that had to do with inequities and inadequacies of the prior bill. The budget of it, even so, we have revenues that are higher than were projected last year, and we don't think that there's going to be any need to raise taxes at this time. There's an effort to actually reduce taxes. As you know, that any sales tax increase that would actually happen, like they did in the prior session before I was there, has an impact on the city. It limits your ability to raise money for critical functions you guys do. So, you know, my interest is to reduce some of those sales taxes, and there was some rumors about increasing property taxes, and that's just not gonna happen at the state level as far as I can tell. There is one initiative that the Supreme Court's hearing right now, and they're gonna rule on it by June about whether internet sales tax goods on, and that's gonna affect you guys as well as us, I think.
U.S. Supreme Court.
Yeah, U.S. Supreme Court.
Yeah, they heard the case today.
They heard it today, and I think they're not gonna make a ruling maybe until June, but.
It's always third week in June, they come out with all of them.
Yep. Some local things that are going on, I just wanna make sure you guys know about the fact we did pass laws on city's ability to identify blighted properties. And that's a big thing for the Leavenworth community. There was a bill on CBD oil, which is a cannabis-derived, no THC. There's a shop in town that does sell that, that we passed through the House and the Senate, I believe, and I think it's gonna be either signed or let go into law. So that's coming through. There's laws about body cameras. We know that's a relevant topic around here, and increased the ability of families to petition, of the victims to petition to see those body camera videos. So you know that there is a new law. It's a small thing, I know, but for garbage truck workers, you can actually get a ticket now if you endanger a garbage truck worker by not slowing down when you go by them. So that's relevant for you folks. Let's see, what other things? We didn't take away the caps. If we want to increase, if your county wants to increase caps or municipality wants to increase taxes, obviously there's still state control on that. Those things do get, we hear about 2 or 3 of them a year, it sounds like, in terms of increasing those, and they pass through. So it really does seem to be kind of a arbitrary cap in place, but it's there still. And I just want to let you know on the correction workers, we're trying to increase their salaries up to the level that El Dorado was increased last year. You'll recall that there were some crises over there, and the governor took action and gave our folks 5% raises and El Dorado 10% raises. We're trying to normalize that, and that is in the current budget. To normalize that, we're also talking about bringing them into the KPF, which is a Kansas Police and Fire Retirement Fund. It's a better fund. It takes longer to vest, but we're trying to have better retention and give them better incentives. That's still not passed both houses yet. It's still held up by one senator over a couple of small things. And so we hopefully those 2 things are going to help us. And by the way, I mean, Leavenworth has the vast majority of the prison workers in town, so that's very relevant for your constituents. We did have a law also to not privatize any further on the prisons, let the correction workers still continue to be state workers and not private prisons. The LCF, I think groundbreaking is Is that tomorrow, next day?
Thursday, isn't it?
Thursday? Yeah.
Thursday.
So, there's more here, but on security, there's a big push on cybersecurity right now. There needs to be, the city has to be very, we need to be vigilant here, the county needs to be vigilant. There's a number of municipalities who have been victim of what's called ransomware, where bad actors come in and take over city computers, and then they have to go through the roles of whether they want to go through and use Bitcoin to pay the ransom and to get this thing unreleased, and we don't want to be victims of that. We put in place a cybersecurity framework. There was an effort at one point by certain entities to put a higher fees on you guys, on the municipalities and the counties. But yours truly, I moved it and we amended it out so that we focus only on the state when they actually do decide to get further funds for that particular role. That's it. I just want to know if there's any questions as we go into this last part of the session. Anything you've heard about, any rumors that you want to clarify before we get there?
How about that $80 million mistake in the school funding?
So what happened is we had a House bill that we felt was very strong. We passed it with bipartisan support. The Senate came in about half as much as we did, and they changed some things around. We didn't like their plan. They didn't like our plan. We pushed our plan into a bill called the Gut and Go. We basically pushed it in there. Meanwhile, somebody added a little bit of something in there. And we knew it was there. It's this thing called the LOB, taking 15% of the local option piece. It's pretty technical. And they added that in on top of what we'd already passed out of the House, which was solid. That resulted in an error that is net about an $80 million, which is a lot of money. Shortfall, right, about what the intent of the bill and what we all expected. It all happened pretty late at night on Saturday before the session was set to close, and no one caught that. Governor Collier signed it into play, even though it was in there. I have full intent to push for getting that piece of language out.
Good.
But also, we might need to have other people vote on it, because there's some people who voted on it that still feel like it was either too high or too low. I was advocating for a little bit more money for special education, for example, and we could have pulled about 5 or 10 more votes in with that. And we don't know who's going to vote for this last piece of that particular bill, but it's certainly my intent to push to make sure that's whole with the intent of what we voted on.
Great.
When does the Supreme Court give you a thumbs up or thumbs down on the education funding?
Sure.
April 30th?
April 30th is when we have to have our argument, and so the Attorney General represents us as far as the state. And so the reason we had to push this bill through by now is so that we would have a plan in place for the Attorney General to then submit arguments for. I think the June is the deadline that they're expecting to have a ruling out there on that. But,
Okay.
they choose their own timeline.
All right, okay. But I know it'd be by July 1st, because that's when the school fiscal year starts. Any other questions for Representative Pittman?
You were on the conference committee for the cyber. I saw that.
Yes, I was.
So that, what was I going to ask on that? What was the most? Was there a significant bill passed in the cyber area, or you indicated that there were some? I'm not sure you really reached
No,
consensus.
what we did, but the governor's going to change one way or the other.
Right.
The administration's going to change. If we were to enact a significant infrastructure change on the cybersecurity,
right,
that would entail having an organization that has a lot of impact on other agencies.
Okay.
And if we did that and made a major transition in the next 6 months, and then we had a huge transition in the administration, we could potentially kind of shoot ourselves in the foot, and that's been done before. So the timing is not right. So what we did was we laid a framework down for that. I'll mention one last thing is on the transportation funds. The legislature in past years, because of the shortfalls, has swept money from that fund that was dedicated there. So what's been put in place this year is a joint task force that we want to keep an eye on to represent, Southern Leavenworth's infrastructure with the different things going on there. They're looking at the 19 or so projects that have been delayed or canceled, or just put on the back burner, I should say, that were originally in scope. And then they're looking forward into the next 5 to 10 years to say, okay, what would we do in terms of the infrastructure the state of Kansas given the different economic factors, technologies, et cetera, and what are the funds that we would expect to have happen there. And so we need to be a part of that. I know you've worked hard in the local area, and we need to keep alignment with that so that we make sure Leavenworth is well represented there.
Absolutely.
I did have one other question on the mental health. I know that wasn't a big issue that the legislature could take on this year, I don't think. What about next year? Because I mean, we heard Sister Ricky tonight. We've been talking about it as a commission. So, I mean, any thoughts in terms of a vision or a framework?
It's a very big issue.
Right.
You know, when we look at this, I often use this number that I was astounded by. The state average for spending by county is $8. And that's taking out Johnson County, which spends a lot of money. So you take that out of the mix, and this average per capita spending is something like $8, is what I was quoted. Leavenworth is $1. Leavenworth County is $1 per capita on mental health services. Now, I don't know why that is. I don't know the accuracy of that. That was given to me by some mental health professionals in the area. That's a shame. You know, it's a true shame. The state can't, I mean, when I was talking to different stakeholders early on in my term, I was told, you know, what we really need is an acute mental health facility where we can take people so our police force is not taken up with all the, you know, issues of, you know, babysitting these folks that need mental health professionals. And the police officers are not trained as mental health professionals. They've got great abilities. They have some skills in this area, but obviously there are better professionals, and we have a little bit of that. We have access to a couple of different facilities, you know, but they're not local. And then with Osawatomie may fall into the wayside. That's the state hospital on the mental health, having so many issues. We put money into the budget to help fix that. We've fixed a couple laws regarding mental health patients, but you know, it's a priority for me. Mental health is huge in our community. We've got huge PTSD. We have family issues because of that. We've got prison populations and prison families. It's obviously a big issue here in Leavenworth.
We have veterans too, you know,
absolutely,
some of the PTSD things.
So I mean, it is a priority, at least for me personally. Can I say that it's a priority for the legislature? We'll see next year.
Well, I think I'm not speak for myself that anything that I could do or we could do as a commission to give you, you know, the data or some information to help.
Absolutely.
With that, particularly next year, because I don't think there's going to be too much more done this year.
I think that, you know, what I would like to kind of is come back in a month or two and just continue to kind of build. I think, even if it's not myself representing our great district here, and I hope it is, but I think if the more alignment we have with city, county, state, and as well as federal on our issues that we really need to push, the more we focus, you know, the point of the spear, you know.
Well, I appreciate that you come in and give us updates, and we do need that. Appreciate what you do. I'm sure that all of us are not in 100% lockstep with you every step of the way, but
are we ever with everybody?
Yeah, but one thing I do appreciate that's happened, I feel in this legislature, we're getting away from running the state based on ideological items, and we're going back to classic management of running a state, and I appreciate that. Ideological issues are, we need to run the state, we need to run education, we need to build roads, we need to do that, and appreciate that the legislature has moved a little bit away from the ideological issues. So, any other questions for Representative Pittman?
Thank you for
comments?
Thank you for coming in.
Yeah,
Thank you guys for having me.
Catch you
Pleasure.
later.
Drive
Appreciate it.
safely. You going back to Topeka?
Any comments?
Yes.
Yes,
I
Commissioner
have
Bauer.
something completely different here, but I attended the United Way of Leavenworth County, and I was the only one there, their annual meeting today, I was the only one there from the city, so I accepted their award for the bronze level, 2017 bronze level workplace campaign. And the United Way greatly appreciates all of the donations they get from the employees of the city of Leavenworth. It keeps, all that money stays local, and all of it goes to the 20-some agencies that they serve, and
What's
the people
their
we serve in the
budget,
community.
what's their goal this year?
I don't know,
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
He didn't say
You used to know that. You used to know
Well,
that
yeah,
when
when
you
I
used to-
worked there, but I don't work there anymore, so I don't know.
Okay.
Well, I work a little bit, but
Yeah.
not that much. So,
Anyway, congratulations, Carla. That's all I have.
Commissioner Griswold, anything?
Well, last week when you were, and the city manager were up in Washington DC, the First City Connection came out, and I thought your letter was marvelous. I really did. And I actually learned some things about e-news that I didn't know, so I just think in terms of strategic communication, it was a real plus, and I mentioned it last week, you weren't here, but,
Okay,
thank you for doing that.
Commissioner Wilson.
Candle Queen's Candle, 5K romp is this upcoming Sunday. Started at 9 o'clock a.m.
I have just a couple things, obviously, City Manager Kramer and I were in DC, met with Pentagon, Capitol Hill folks, our senators, Representative Jenkins, Representative Yoder's staff, and also Bureau of Prisons. Mr. Kramer sent out in a CIM last week a recap, and I don't, unless anybody has any particular questions, I don't know, need to recap it, and Mr. Richmeyer covered it in the paper today also, and thank you for doing that. Cleanup, citywide cleanup, I know, which is 2 weeks ago, I'm sure you guys mentioned it last time. It was good, it's needed, it's sad how much it's needed, but you know, I just appreciate that there are approximately 1,000 people that are involved that care enough about their hometown to clean up the place. And it's very sad that there's probably more than 1,000 people that have no problem throwing their trash out the car. Just as they finish it, eating, throw everything out the window. It's just amazing. But it's just a continuous effort, and hopefully we can change the mindset on that. Tomorrow morning, school endowment fund breakfast, 7 a.m. at the high school. The annual breakfast for the school endowment fund. It's usually well attended, probably 500-600 people, I'm guessing. And speaker is a LHS graduate that was a wrestler at Stanford, I believe.
Oh, that's Nathan Butler.
Yeah. So that's it. If nothing else, Mr. Kramer, you have anything? Okay, we're adjourned.